I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, I spent years believing I knew everything about my wife, trusting her with my life, my future, every little piece of me. We had plans, big ones, weddings, a house, maybe someday kids. The kind of future I'd imagine when you're just starting out, full of hope and promise. But all of that feels like a distant, stupid dream now. It started a few weeks ago when I noticed her phone kept ringing at odd times. She'd rush to answer, then slip into the bathroom or hide behind the couch. I got curious, dumb, I guess, but nothing prepared me for what I found. One night I followed her to her office building after she said she had a late meeting. I stood in the parking lot, cold wind biting my face, trying to look casual, but I was more like a nervous wreck. Then I saw her, walking out arm in arm with her boss, Jim. Yeah, the guy she'd always said was just a client, just a friend. They weren't just chatting. No, their heads were close, their smiles secretive. I could see her hand brushing his chest as they talked. My blood froze in my veins. My stomach sank like I'd been punched. I backed into the shadows and watched them get into his car. That's when I saw the thing that shattered everything, her hairbrush, her favorite one, lying on the passenger seat. I recognized it immediately because she always kept it in her purse. It was a small, innocuous thing, but it was enough to make my hands go clammy with rage. She'd lied. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying what I saw, the sneer on her face, the way she looked at him like he was more than just her boss. I kept thinking about how I'd trusted her, how I'd planned everything around her. I was furious, but mostly I felt betrayed. It wasn't just cheating. It was like she'd planned to leave me, with him. They weren't just messing around, they were talking about running away together, maybe even planning to leave town. I had to know more. It wasn't enough to see her with him. My gut was telling me there was more. I started digging through her phone, her emails, anything I could find. I needed proof to confront her. The evidence I uncovered was worse than I expected. Messages from her talking about how she was done with me, how she hated living a lie, and how she was planning to ditch her life and run off with Jim. They had dates, plans, a whole map of their escape. I'd never felt so sick in my life. And yet I kept my composure. I knew I couldn't just blow up and scream. That wouldn't serve me. I needed a plan, something cold, calculated, final. But I didn't want just to ruin her. I wanted her to understand how much she'd hurt me, how deeply she'd betrayed everything we built. That's when I decided I'd get revenge, not with tears or shouting, but with a move she wouldn't see coming. I started setting my plan in motion, gathering evidence, yes, but also preparing a way to show her I'd found everything. I wanted her to see that I knew all along. I wanted to make her realize that her plans were useless, that I wasn't going to be the guy she secretly cheated on, then ran away with. No, I'd make sure she paid for her betrayal in a way she'd never forget. I remember the feeling as I sat in my apartment that night, nervously clutching the phone, knowing I was about to turn everything upside down. My palms felt sweaty and my stomach was tight. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears as I dialed her number. It was time to confront her, or at least tell her I knew what she'd been up to. I had her address, her car keys, her plans. Everything was ready. I just had to wait for the right moment. And when she walked through that door, I knew I'd have my chance. It was going to be messy, but I was done trusting her blindly. Now I was ready to take what she owed me without any hesitation. Because a betrayal like this doesn't just get forgiven, it gets paid back. The moment she stepped into the apartment that evening, I felt everything tighten inside me. Her heels clicked loudly on the hardwood floor, each step echoing like a countdown. I was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, my jaw clenched so tight I thought I might crack a tooth. She looked tired but nervous, maybe sensing something was off. I didn't say a word, not yet. She paused, eyes flickering over me, trying to gauge my mood. "Hey," she said softly, voice tentative. "What's wrong?" I kept my phone steady, stared directly at her. "You've been lying," I said simply, voice steady but cold as steel. "I know about Jim, about what you're planning, about everything." Her face froze, then paled. Her hands trembled slightly, but she quickly tried to recover. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand," I interrupted sharply. "You're running with him, aren't you? Planning to leave me, to start a new life with your boss." She looked away, her fingers twisting nervously. "It's not like that. I didn't mean for you to find out like this." "I found out because I followed you," I told her. You're sending him messages. You even left your hairbrush in his car. Do you think I wouldn't notice?" Her eyes welled with tears, but I didn't care. I'd prepared everything so meticulously that I knew I had the upper hand. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folder I'd hidden, thick with screenshots, printed messages, and recordings. "Here's your little plan," spreading the papers on the table. "Your plans to run away with him and your lies about being just friends." She looked at the evidence, her face crumbling. "Please, I didn't mean for it to get this far. It just happened. I was scared. I was tired of everything of us, of the life we had. I was the one working my ass off to build that life," I snapped. "While you were screwing around behind my back." She sank onto the couch, clutching her head. "I never wanted to hurt you, I swear. I thought I deserved more." "You deserve to be honest," I spat. "But instead you chose to betray everything. I trusted you. I planned our future around you." My voice cracked slightly, but I pushed on. "And now I see that I was just a fool." Her eyes flickered with guilt, maybe a flicker of regret, but I knew it was too late. That's when I realized this wasn't just about catching her. It was about what I was going to do next. I'd saved all this evidence for a reason. Time to make her understand she couldn't just walk away without consequences. I tapped my phone and held up the screen. I recorded everything she said when she thought she was alone. Every lie, every plan to run off with him. I even recorded your voice telling him you're leaving me. Do you want to hear what I've got? She nodded weakly, tears streaming now. Please, I pressed play. Her voice trembling, admitting everything. Her plans, her hopes to disappear with Jim. Listening to her confess, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and anger. This was the proof I needed to make sure she knew I was serious about ending it. I want you gone, I told her. And I want you to hear this now. You've betrayed me and I don't want to see you again. Her face crumpled further, but I was already making my final decision. I wasn't going to let her walk out the door and ruin my life with him. Not without a fight. I had a plan. A calculated, cold plan. I told her to pack her things, just a few minutes. I wanted her out, and I wanted her to understand that this wasn't just about the cheating, it was about the end of everything we had. I didn't want her to think she could lie and cheat her way back into my life. Not anymore. This was over, and I was ready to make sure she paid a price she wouldn't forget. She stood there, trembling, clutching her purse. Please, can we talk? Just give me a chance to explain. No, I said sharply. You had your chance and you threw it away. Now get your stuff. You're leaving tonight. As she hesitated, I watched her eyes dart around the apartment, searching for some way out. But I was done waiting. I'd already decided what came next. The game was over, and she was about to learn I wasn't someone to betray and walk away from. When she finally grabbed her bag, I reached for her arm, stopping her. Think about what you're doing. You won't like the consequences once I'm done. I meant every word, and I knew it was only the beginning of a long, cold game, one she'd regret ever starting. That night, I stayed up late, watching her pack her bags in silence. Every movement she made, every item she threw into her suitcase felt like a punch to my gut. I could hear the faint rustling of clothes, the clink of her jewelry, and the occasional deep breath she took, like she was trying to hold herself together. But she couldn't hide her guilt, no matter how much she tried. Her shoulders hunched and her eyes kept darting around the room as if she was searching for a way to escape what was coming. I didn't say much. What was there to say? I'd already made my decision. The evidence was clear, and I'd prepared the final blow. I knew I had to act quickly before she could get away or spin some sob story to save herself. As she zipped up her suitcase, she looked at me one last time, tears pooling again. Please, she whispered, voice trembling. Don't do this. We can fix it. I swear I love you. I cut her off coldly. Love? You think love is lying to me, sneaking around behind my back and planning to leave? That's not love. That's betrayal. And I'm done pretending it's not. She tried to reach out, her hand trembling, but I stepped back. You're leaving tonight, I said firmly. Pack your stuff and then I want you gone. I've already arranged for everything. You're not staying here a minute longer. Her face twisted with pain. You're serious? As a heart attack, I replied. And don't try to change my mind. There's nothing left to say. She nodded slowly, her tears spilling over her cheeks. Fine, I'll go. I watched her, cold and detached, as she finished packing. The silence between us was deafening. I felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on my chest, but more than that, I felt a strange sense of relief. Like I was finally closing a chapter I should have closed long ago. When she was finished, she looked around the apartment one last time. Her fingers lingered on the doorframe, like she was trying to hold on to something she knew she'd never get back. Then, with a trembling voice, she said, "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to end like this." "Sorry doesn't fix what you did," I said, voice flat. "You made your choice, now you live with it." She handed me her keys and phone, then turned to leave. I watched her walk out, feeling the cold emptiness settle in my stomach. I didn't cry or scream. I just stood there watching her disappear down the hall and out of my life for good. Once she was gone, I sat down on the couch, exhausted. My mind was racing, planning, calculating, thinking about what I'd do next. I knew she'd try to contact me, to manipulate or guilt me into taking her back. But I had already made my decision. I'd never trust her again, not after what she'd done. That night, I finally felt a strange sense of clarity. The betrayal cut deep, but it also freed me. I could finally breathe again. I knew I'd be okay. And I already had a plan to make sure she understood she'd lost someone who truly loved her, and that no amount of lies or cheating could undo what I was about to do. I poured myself a drink and stared out the window at the city lights flickering in the darkness. The feeling of betrayal still burned, but so did a fierce determination. She was gone, and I was going to make sure she remembered exactly what she'd thrown away. I'd start by doing the one thing I'd never thought I'd have to do: show her that her betrayal came with a price. And the next step was already set in motion. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper, her new address, the one I'd found in her secret messages. I'd make sure she knew I wasn't playing any more games. She'd regret ever crossing me. That was a promise. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter in some weird way, even though everything around me was a mess. The apartment was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. I poured myself a cup of black coffee, no sugar, no cream, just bitter enough to match how I was feeling. I sat on the couch, staring at the empty spot where she'd been sleeping last night. It looked so vacant now, like the place had lost its soul. I had already planned what I was going to do. I knew I couldn't just let her walk away and forget about the damage she'd caused. No, I wanted her to see what she'd thrown away, to feel the weight of her choices. I wanted her to understand that I was serious, that I wasn't just some pushover she could betray and forget. I took out my phone and opened a new message. My fingers moved with purpose. I typed her new address, the one I'd uncovered in her secret emails, and hit send. No message, no explanation, just her address. I wanted her to know I knew exactly where she was, how to find her, and that I wasn't done with her yet. I needed her to feel vulnerable, exposed, like she'd left her life in my hands and now I was holding on to it. Then I made myself a checklist of what I'd do next. First, I would get rid of all her stuff, but with a twist. No anger, just cold efficiency. I'd pack what she left behind, then leave her a note. Something like, "You've made your choice, don't come back. You broke what was ours, and I won't be the fool anymore." I wanted her to feel that I was serious. I wanted her to understand this wasn't just a breakup. It was war. While I was at it, I also contacted a private investigator I'd found online, someone discreet, professional. I didn't want her slipping away or sneaking back. No, I needed proof of her new life with Jim, proof that I could show everyone if I needed to. My plan was to make her realize that her betrayal wasn't just for me. It was for everyone who might have trusted her. During the day, I went through her social media, carefully screenshotting everything. I wanted a backup in case she deleted her evidence or tried to spin a story. I kept my phone close, ready to record any new lies or messages she might send. This was about control, taking back what she'd tried to take from me, piece by piece. At one point, I found her calling Jim, an hour after she left. I sat on the bed, listening to the recordings I'd secretly made. Her voice was trembling, pleading, like she was desperate. I heard her ask him if they were really going to do this, if they were finally leaving everything behind. I felt a surge of anger. How stupid could she be? Did she think I wouldn't find out, that I wouldn't take action? I picked up my phone and dialed her number. She answered immediately, voice shaky. "What do you want?" "Just to remind you," I said, voice low and steady. You made your choice. You're leaving behind a life I built. Don't come back. There was a long pause, then she muttered, "You're overreacting. This isn't what it looks like." "Oh, I think it is," I said. "You're leaving me for your boss, and I want you to know I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are." I hung up without waiting for a response, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. I'd made my move. Now I just had to wait, watch her reaction, and see how far she was willing to go. Later that evening, I set my final plan in motion. I called the moving company, scheduled a pickup for her belongings. I wanted her to leave with nothing but the clothes on her back and the shame in her eyes. I left the note on the door. "You betrayed me. I'm done. Don't bother trying to contact me. This is goodbye." It was cold, simple, final. This was more than just a breakup. It was justice. She thought she could cheat her way out of what she did, but I was going to make sure she remembered how it felt to be betrayed, the same way she betrayed me. As I watched the movers take her things away, I realized I'd never felt so clear-headed. The pain was still there, but so was a fierce sense of liberation. She'd lost her chance, and I'd taken back control. Now I was left with only one thing: to rebuild, to truly move on. But I knew, deep down, this wasn't over. The lesson was clear: betray someone once and they'll make sure you pay. The days that followed were a blur of cold silence and careful planning. I didn't reach out to her again. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. Instead, I focused on myself, cleaning up the mess she left behind, both physically and emotionally. Her belongings were gone, her keys handed over, and her note was sitting on the doorstep like a final nail in the coffin of what we had. I'd already hired the private investigator, who was now working on gathering concrete proof of her new relationship with Jim. I needed pictures, maybe recordings, anything I could use to show the world her true colors if she tried to spin a story. Honestly, I wasn't planning to do anything crazy. My revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about making her realize she'd lost something real and valuable. But I wasn't done yet. No, I wanted her to feel the sting of her betrayal in a way that would stick with her. That's when I came up with my plan, a way to remind her that I knew everything and I wasn't afraid to use it. I arranged to send her a carefully worded email, a collection of everything she tried to hide from me. I included screenshots of her messages with Jim, photos from the investigation, and a simple note: "This is what you're leaving behind. Don't bother trying to contact me. You chose this life. You own it now." I sent it from a blocked email address, ensuring she couldn't trace it back. I didn't want her to know I was the one behind it, not yet. Then I made sure to be visible around town. Not in a stalker way, just enough so she'd see I was still there, still watching. I knew she'd be trying to get her footing, maybe reaching out to friends or family. I wanted her to know I was still in control, even after she'd left. One night I visited the local bar where she used to go with her friends. I sat at a corner table watching her come in with Jim. She looked different, not the same woman I'd fallen for. Her face was tense, eyes darting around, trying to hide her guilt. Jim, of course, looked smug, like he'd already won something. I felt a strange satisfaction watching her squirm. She finally spotted me and her face paled. She approached cautiously, voice trembling. "What are you doing here?" I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Just making sure you remember what you threw away." She swallowed hard. "Please." "No," I interrupted. "You betrayed me. You thought you could cheat your way into a better life, but you forgot something. I'm not the kind of guy who gets turned around so easily. You can run, you can hide, but I've already won. You just don't know it yet." She looked like she wanted to say something, but her voice caught in her throat. I did need her apology. I needed her to understand that she'd lost everything that mattered: her marriage, her integrity, her future. I was done with the game, done with waiting. The final step came when I knew she'd try to contact me again. I was ready. I went to the courthouse and filed for divorce. No messy fights, no fighting over money or possessions, just a clean break. I handed over all the evidence I'd collected, and then I signed the papers. When I handed her the divorce decree, I made sure she looked at it closely. This was the end of the line for us. Before I left the courthouse, I handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a simple note: "You made your choice. I hope it was worth it." No threats, no anger, just truth. Then I turned and walked out, leaving her to read it or ignore it. Walking away from her, I felt a strange mix of relief and clarity. I'd taken control, I'd ended the betrayal, and I'd shown her that no matter how far she ran, she couldn't escape the consequences of her actions. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life, about understanding that sometimes you have to cut your losses. She might have thought she was smarter, better, more deserving, but I proved her wrong. I took back what was mine and set my boundaries. The worst part, knowing she'd regret it. Knowing she'd remember this moment when she realized she'd thrown away the best thing that ever happened to her. And seeing her walk away, alone, humiliated and empty-handed, felt like the final victory I needed. It was the closure I'd been waiting for. Now I only have one thing left to do: close the chapter completely. I handed over the keys, signed the papers, and walked out of her life for good. Because if there's one thing I learned from this, it's that betrayal has a cost, and I was the one who made sure she paid it. After everything was done, I felt a strange calm settle over me, like finally closing a chapter I never wanted to open in the first place. I walked out of the courthouse with the divorce papers in hand, the weight of betrayal finally lifted. The sun was shining brightly that day, a stark contrast to the darkness I'd been living in. I remember feeling the cool breeze brush past my face, almost like nature was nodding in approval. It was over. I drove home, the engine humming steadily beneath me. I didn't bother stopping for anything. I just wanted to get back to my space to breathe freely again. When I got home, I took a deep breath, then went straight to the small box where I'd carefully stored everything: her belongings, the evidence, the notes I'd left her. I took the keys and the letter and placed them in there, sealing the whole thing away. I closed the box slowly, feeling a strange sense of finality. That was it. The last piece of her I'd hold on to. I knew I had to move forward to rebuild what I'd lost, but the truth was I already felt lighter, like a burden had been lifted from my shoulders. I called a friend I trusted, someone who'd been supportive during the worst of it. I needed to hear a familiar voice, someone who understood. When he picked up, I told him everything about the betrayal, the plan, the fallout. His voice was steady, calm as always. "You did the right thing," he said. "You took control, and that's what matters. Just keep moving forward." That night I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. The air was crisp, and I could finally think clearly. I didn't feel anger exactly, more like relief mixed with a quiet sadness. She was gone, and I'd made sure she understood what she'd lost. I wasn't bitter, I was free. Looking back, I realized that betrayal teaches you a lot about yourself. I learned I was stronger than I thought, capable of cutting ties with someone I once loved deeply. I learned I don't have to tolerate lies and deceit. And I learned that sometimes the only way to truly move on is to take control, face the pain, and make a stand. I want to tell anyone going through something similar: trust your instincts, don't ignore the red flags, and never let betrayal define you. It's painful, yeah. Hell, it's gut-wrenching. But in the end, you come out the other side stronger. Sometimes the only way to heal is to burn everything to the ground first and then rebuild from the ashes. I've done that. I've rebuilt, and I'm finally at peace. The future might still be uncertain, but I know now that I control my story, no one else. And that's the most valuable lesson I've learned through all this chaos. So here's my advice. Don't wait for the betrayal to be obvious. Pay attention to the small signs, trust your gut, and don't be afraid to walk away. Because in the end, your happiness and self-respect are worth more than anyone's lies. Move on, rebuild, and never let someone else's betrayal define who you are.